It's Mary Ugolini here, reporting with Rebel News in front of the Ottawa Police Services at their Canada location at 211 Huntman Drive. I'm here to cover the oral submissions being heard today by the lawyer acting on behalf of persecuted and to be prosecuted Detective Helen Gruss, who was investigating the COVID-19 status of mothers whose babies died suddenly. Now, if you're not familiar with this case, Gruss is a diligent detective being threatened with job loss or demotion for the allegation that she investigated a string of 9 infant deaths that she was not the principal investigator for. You can reference back to my previous report on the subject matter in the written copy of this report to learn more about this convoluted, twisty story, but basically, Gruss is alleged to have called a father to inquire about the COVID-19 vaccine status of one of the mothers whose babies died suddenly, as well as contacting the coroner's office to obtain additional information that is said to have been contained in their reports. Gruss's lawyer, Bathsheba Vandenberg, began oral submissions seeking additional disclosure items and evidence against Gruss at the Ottawa Police Services Disciplinary Tribunal on April 28th. She noted that Gruss has been employed with the OPS for 20 years and has a spotless record, highlighting the need for the evidence against her to be robust and adequate to justify the economic loss and career setback the disciplinary action launched against Gruss would undoubtedly cause. Gruss was part of the Child Abuse and Sexual Assault Unit at the OPS, which is tasked with investigating all instances of sudden, unexplained death in children under the age of 5. This unit often works as a team to conduct research and investigations. It is argued by Gruss's lawyer that she was justified in asking basic medical history questions that are part of the sudden infant death questionnaire required by the task force to complete. On lack of disclosure and evidence, Gruss has attempted to bring forward motions on 4 separate occasions to obtain additional information around the specifics of her alleged discreditable conduct charge, the autopsy reports in question, and to subpoena CBC journalist Shamini Yogertneman that is said to have leaked the internal police investigation into Gruss's actions, effectively disrupting the case and resulting in a politically motivated vendetta against Gruss. It is important to note that Gruss was first accused of subordination for accessing the OPS database to conduct the initial investigation into these 9 infant deaths. But because the evidence against her was unsubstantiated, this charge did not move forward. Gruss now faces this second charge of discreditable conduct, a more broad allegation and a charge that is almost verbatim to the initial unsubstantiated one, but now includes the apparent phone call to a father and perhaps contact with the coroners in question. In this particular hearing, lawyer Vandenberg gave oral submissions on relevancy of the requested disclosure items. For instance, the subpoena to the CBC journalist would help establish where the confidential police investigation leaked from, which, if from a police insider, could be said to undermine trust in the police force, and some would argue constitutes an discreditable conduct charge in and of itself. For the autopsy reports, Vandenberg noted the broad timeline of the allegations against Gruss, spanning June 2020 to January 2022, and cited the need for the reports to help adequately date the allegations launched against Gruss, which she claims happened only after the CBC media leak. Repeatedly, it was said there was procedural unfairness and bias at play within the tribunal itself and within the OPS in persecuting Gruss. Now, the gallery had approximately 15 to 20 supporters of Detective Gruss, and I was able to catch up with a few of them both on lunch break and when the proceedings ended. Let's check out what they had to say.
I wanted to come and support and her fight against this injustice is what I see. And I also wanted to come. I have a lot of friends that can't be here today and wanted to support her, so I wanted to be that for them as well.
Basically, she's being railroaded. In my opinion. She's trying to do her job and they're just putting up roadblocks and making an example of her.
I'm an ex-police officer from Northern Ireland, so I've seen lots of cases where there are police involvements in some sort of criminality. But I find that this case here is particularly interesting because it looks as though that Helen is being accused of something that she doesn't even know what she's been accused of, from what I've gathered so far. And it appears to me that that the accusations that have been made against her, they're not even showing what they are. And it doesn't matter who you are, you need to know what you've actually done wrong before you can actually look into how to defend yourself from it.
Do you think that the probe she was conducting was justified here? Was she acting out of her duties? After hearing the submissions today, what do you make of all of this as it moves forward?
I absolutely feel that she was doing her job. And I wish everybody could conduct their job in that manner and with, that amount of perseverance and care and concern. And especially in a situation like this with so many incidences.
Most definitely. She was doing her job. And she's good at her job, and she's being penalized for it because of her difference of opinions, in my opinion.
And based on the issue of public interest, do you think that's warranted?
It's warranted for her to do her job, definitely. And if she didn't, it would be negligent, and that's not in the public's interest.
As a former police officer, do you think it was warranted what Gruce did if she was probing this investigation?
Absolutely, 100%. You follow a line of investigation and you take that investigation as far as you can go, and you just speak to whoever you want if you're a part of that investigation. And if she's a part of an investigation team that is looking into infant deaths in this case, well then of course she has to go to the pathologist, she has to go to all the records, she has to go to the parents, she has to go to anybody that's involved in that and speak to any of them. And whether they want to speak back to her is another story. But up until then, she's allowed to speak to anybody she wants. And any member of the public, in fact, can do that anyway. You don't have to be a police officer. So in this case here, for her authorities to try to prevent her from carrying out an investigation, they're actually the ones that are in the wrong, in my opinion. So this thing seems to be totally upside down. It seems to be back to front, and it seems to be a knee-jerk reaction from the actual the service themselves, from what I can see so far. We haven't heard any evidence. We don't know what the evidence is against her. And it's putting the cart before the horse. You got to lay out, if you're going to accuse somebody, he who accuses must prove. You know what I mean? So it's as simple as that.
Based on the arguments that you heard today, and it was, 6-7 hours worth of kind of back and forth, a lot of submissions by her legal counsel, what do you suspect will happen moving forward? Do you think the motions will be granted?
I would expect them to be granted. I'm hopeful, but I personally don't think they will be. It's been nothing but roadblocks, so she'll have to appeal again, or we'll see in the trial, I guess.
And a lot of people are saying that this is really a persecution based on political reasons, and I would even argue based on public health reasons. What's your position there?
I would concur. Exactly that.
A police officer has either not done their duty correctly, and then they get charged for neglect of duty. But when somebody's proactively doing their duty and then gets charged for not doing that duty, it just seems totally opposite to what you should be. It seems to be like putting the cart before the horse. Mm-hmm. In other words, what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? And if I've done something wrong, tell me what it is so that I can then tell you whether you're right or wrong or not. And it's as simple as that.
I really hope to see her exonerated. I haven't had a lot of faith in a lot of actions that have gone on against anybody during all of these crazy measures and times. But I really do hope these charges will be dropped and that she'll be exonerated and reinstated and actually applauded instead of taken down for this.
That's a wrap here at the Canada Police Services. I'm Tamara Ugolini for Rebel News. This sort of censoring and slandering anyone who dares ask questions of the safe and effective regime is exactly why we've launched a petition at stopmedicalsilencing.com. If you think that seasoned professionals should be able to give their opinions without fear of reprimand, then head on over to our page at stopmedicalsilencing.com and sign our petition.